The Galactic Unity Academy floated in the endless dark of space like a silver flower. It was the largest school in the known galaxy. Students came from 100 different worlds to study here. There were beings made of crystal who spoke with light. There were creatures with 6 legs and hard shells like insects. There were floating gas beings who breathed through special masks. The academy had seen every kind of alien life, but it had never seen a human. Instructor stood at the front of her classroom. She was tall and thin, with wings like a dragonfly and large black eyes. Her job was to teach physical education to the academy's students. She had been doing this job for 40 years. She thought she had seen everything. Then the message arrived on her. A new transfer student would join her class today. Species, human, planet of origin, Earth. Wings buzzed with confusion. Humans were new to the galaxy. Their planet had only been discovered 5 years ago. They were barely able to travel between stars. Why would one of them come here? She looked at her class. 30 students sat in floating chairs around the large gymnasium. There was a girl with 6 arms and a hard brown shell. There was a group of students, their crystal bodies catching the light and throwing rainbows on the walls. In the corner, a floated in a special tank, its gas body swirling like clouds. The door opened. Everyone turned to look. A young man walked in. He looked strange to them. He had soft skin with no shell or scales. His body was covered in simple cloth. Dark hair sat on top of his round head. He had 2 small eyes, a nose that stuck out, and a mouth that curved upward in a smile. This was Park. He was 18 years old. Back on Earth, he had been a normal student. He played video games. He went to school. He ate his mother's cooking. He was nothing special. But to the aliens in that room, he looked like something from a nightmare. Behind him walked a human woman. Her name was, and she worked as a guide for humans in space. She wore a formal suit and carried a small bag. Instructor said with a small bow, "This is Park. He will be studying here for 1 semester as part of the cultural exchange program." Wing stopped moving. She stared at the boy. Something about him made her feel strange. It took her a moment to understand what it was. He moved wrong. When walked, his body flowed like water. His eyes moved quickly, looking at everything in the room. When he breathed, his chest expanded more than seemed possible. When he turned his head, it rotated further than it should. Had studied many species. She knew what predators looked like. This soft, smiling boy moved like a hunter. "Welcome," she managed to say. "Please, take a seat." Gave an encouraging nod and left. The door closed behind her. Now the human was alone with 30 very nervous aliens. Looked around for an empty seat. He spotted one next to. He walked over and sat down. 6 legs pulled closer to her body. Her shell made a clicking sound. "Hi," said, "I'm nice to meet you." Stared at him. She had never heard such strange sounds before. The translator device in her ear turned them into words she could understand, but the voice behind them was deep and rumbling. It reminded her of large animals on her home world. Large, dangerous animals. "I am," she said quietly. Smile grew wider. "Cool name. What planet are you from?" Before could answer, instructor clapped her thin hands together. "Class, please pay attention. Today we will continue our lesson on basic movement and endurance." The students stood up from their chairs. Well, most of them stood. They just floated higher in its tank. The students unfolded their crystal legs with soft chiming sounds. Stood up too. He stretched his arms above his head, and several joints in his body made popping sounds. The students near him jumped back in fear. "Sorry," said, "my bones do that sometimes." Leaned toward another student. "Did you hear that? Parts of its skeleton just broke." "And it apologized," the other student whispered back, like it was nothing. Instructor led the class to the running track. It was a large oval that circled the gymnasium. "We will start with a simple endurance test. Please run at a comfortable pace until you feel tired. The students began to run, or float, or crawl. Each species moved in its own way. Started jogging. At first, no one paid attention to him. They were too busy with their own running. But after 5 minutes, something became clear. The other students were getting tired. They were slowing down. They were making distressed chiming sounds. Even though was sinking lower in its tank. But was still running. His breathing was calm. His pace was steady. His soft body showed no signs of stopping. 10 minutes passed, 15, 20. One by one, the other students stopped running. They stood at the side of the track, watching the human. Notice them watching. He waved as he passed by. "Why isn't he stopping?" a student asked. "Maybe he can't," said. "Maybe once he starts, he cannot stop until his prey is caught." The student's crystal body flickered with fear. "We are not prey, we are not prey, we are not prey." Instructor checked her timer. The human had been running for 30 minutes. She had to stop this before her students had a complete breakdown. "That is enough," she called out. "Well done, you may stop now." Slowed to a walk, he came over to instructor, breathing just a little harder than before. "That was a nice warm-up," he said. "When does the real exercise start?" Every alien in the gymnasium went completely silent. In the back of the room made a decision. She would never, ever make this human angry. It was the decision she had ever made. The next day, instructor arrived at the gymnasium early. She had not slept well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the human running, running and running and never stopping. She had sent a message to the Academy's science department asking for information about humans. The reply had kept her awake all night. Humans came from a planet called Earth. Earth was not a nice place. It had extreme temperatures. It had poisonous plants and deadly animals. It had diseases that could kill in days. The gravity was strong. The sun sent harmful rays. And yet somehow humans had survived there for thousands of years. They were not just survivors. They were hunters. They used to chase animals for hours until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. This was called persistence hunting. Humans could not run fast, but they could run forever. Looked at her lesson plan for the day. It was the standard physical assessment that every new student had to complete. She had a terrible feeling about it. The students arrived one by one. When walked in, several of them moved to the other side of the room. He did not seem to notice. He just smiled and waved at everyone. "Today," announced, "we will conduct the standard physical assessment for our new student. This will help us understand his abilities and limits." She said the word limits with hope in her voice. The first test was the strength assessment. A large machine sat in the corner of the gymnasium. It had handles that you pulled against hydraulic resistance. The machine measured how much force you could produce. A student went first. His hard shell and 6 arms let him pull with great power. The machine showed a score of 340. Then it was turn. He grabbed the handles with his soft 5-fingered hands. He had no shell. He had no extra arms. He had nothing but meat and bone. He pulled. The machine showed a score of 285. The room went silent. "That is impossible," said. "He has no exoskeleton. Where does the force come from?" Step back from the machine. "Is that good? I don't really work out much. Back home, I mostly just played video games." Swings went still. If this was what a weak human could do, what could a strong one do? The second test was flexibility. Students had to bend their bodies in different ways while the machine recorded their movement range. The students did poorly. Their hard shells did not allow much bending. They did better because their crystal bodies could shift slightly. They did not participate because it had no solid body. Then stepped up. He bent forward and touched his toes with his palms flat on the ground. Several students gasped. Then he reached his arms behind his back and grabbed his own shoulders. Then he rotated his head almost completely around to look behind him. A student named fell off her chair. "His bones," she whispered from the floor. "His bones are not connected to each other." "They are connected," said, helping her up. "They just move in ways that should not be possible." Straightened up. "Was that okay? I'm not very flexible compared to my sister. She does yoga." Nobody knew what yoga was. Nobody wanted to know. The third test was reaction speed. Small lights would flash around the room, and students had to touch them as quickly as possible. The students were fast. Their crystal bodies could move at the speed of light itself. They easily scored the highest. But was not far behind them. His soft body moved with sudden, explosive speed. He would stand completely still, and then his arm would shoot out like a striking snake. The lights barely had time to flash before his hand was there. "Humans cannot move at light speed," said to herself, reading her. "But their nervous system is incredibly fast for a biological creature. Their reaction time is measured in fractions of a second." The fourth test was the pain tolerance questionnaire. This was not a physical test. Students just had to describe painful experiences they had survived. A student talked about the time she cracked one of her crystal fingers. She had to wait 2 months for it to grow back. The class agreed this was very painful. Then shared his experiences. "Well, when I was 12, I broke my arm falling off my bicycle. The bone came out through the skin. It hurt a lot, but the doctors put it back together with metal pins. I was playing sports again in 3 months." Dead silence. "Oh, and last year I got stung by a wasp. My whole hand swelled up like a balloon. That was pretty bad." More silence. "And once I got food poisoning and couldn't stop throwing up for 2 days. I lost 5 kilograms, but after a week I was fine." Set down her hands were shaking. "Your body," she said slowly, "heals itself after being torn open." Nodded. "Yeah, humans heal pretty fast. We can even regrow skin and small amounts of muscle. We can't regrow big parts like some lizards can, though." "Some humans can regrow parts." "No, I meant lizards. They're animals on Earth. They can drop their tails and grow new ones." Did not know what was more frightening, a creature that could regrow body parts, or the fact that such a creature existed on the same planet as humans. After the assessment was complete, she dismissed the class. The students left quickly, giving a wide space as they passed him. Packed up his bag and walked to the door. He stopped and turned around. "Instructor, thank you for the class today. It was really fun." Then he left. Stood alone in the empty gymnasium. She looked at her again. The human's physical assessment results glowed on the screen. Endurance exceptional. Strength above average. Flexibility extreme. Reaction speed high. Pain tolerance unknown upper limit. She added one more note at the bottom. Recommend further study. Possible danger classification maximum. Then she went to find something strong to drink. Stories spread fast in the Galactic Unity Academy. By the end of the first week, everyone knew about the human. In the dining hall, students from every species gathered in groups to share what they had heard. The truth mixed with lies until nobody could tell them apart. But the lies were not much stranger than the truth. "I heard he ran for an hour without stopping. I heard he broke his own bones and they fixed themselves. I heard he bends like he has no skeleton at all. I heard his species hunts by chasing prey until it dies from exhaustion." That last one was actually true, but nobody wanted to believe it. Sat alone at a table in the corner of the dining hall. She was the human cultural officer stationed at the academy. Her job was to help aliens understand humans and help humans understand aliens. Right now, she was failing at the first part. A group of students approached her table. Their crystal bodies chimed nervously. "Human," one of them said, "we have questions." Put down her food. Of course, please ask anything. Is it true that humans can function without sleep for many days? Thought about how to answer. We can stay awake for a few days if we need to, but it's not healthy. We need sleep to function properly. The students exchanged worried looks. A few days without sleep was impossible for most species. Is it true that humans consume the flesh of other creatures? Yes, many humans eat meat, but we also eat plants. We can eat almost anything, really. The chiming sounds from the grew louder. On their world, eating another creature was considered barbaric. Is it true that humans emit poison from their skin when threatened? Blinked. What? No, where did you hear that? The human boy, Park. He told a student not to touch him because he was sweating. He said the salt could hurt her shell. Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. He was being nice. Human sweat contains salt and other minerals. It can irritate some species. He was trying to protect her. So he does emit dangerous substances from his skin. It's not dangerous to most. Stopped. She could see it was hopeless. Okay, yes. Human sweat, it's how we cool our bodies. Please don't touch a sweating human without asking first. The students hurried away to share this new information. Watched them go. She needed to talk to about what he was saying to people. Meanwhile, was having a difficult day. He did not understand why everyone was avoiding him. When he walked down a hallway, students pressed against the walls to let him pass. When he sat down in a classroom, the seats around him stayed empty. When he tried to say hello, people ran away. He thought maybe he smelled bad. He had been showering every day, but maybe that was not enough. Humans and aliens had different ideas about cleanliness. During lunch, he sat alone at a large table. All around him, other tables were crowded with students, but his table was empty except for him. He looked down at his food. It was some kind of protein paste. It did not taste like anything. He missed his mother's cooking. A shadow fell over his table. He looked up. It was Shimmer of Dawn, a student from his physical education class. Her crystal body was pale blue, and she made soft musical sounds when she moved. Thought she was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. "May I sit?" she asked. His face lit up. "Yes, please, of course, please sit down." Shimmer of Dawn sat across from him. She had no food because did not eat. They absorbed energy from light. "I wanted to ask you something," she said. "Anything." "Why did you come here?" Thought about the question. "I wanted to learn about other species. I wanted to see space. I wanted to have an adventure." He paused. "And honestly, I wasn't very good at school back home. My grades were average. I had no special skills. When the government asked for volunteers for the exchange program, I thought, why not? Maybe I could be special out here." Shimmer of Dawn's crystal body flickered with soft colors. "You wanted to be special. Is that stupid?" "No," she said. "I understand. On my world I am ordinary, just one crystal among millions, but here I am the only in my class. I am unique." Smiled. "So we're both ordinary people in extraordinary places." "Yes, I think so." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Shimmer of Dawn spoke again. "The other students are afraid of you." Smile faded. "I know, I don't understand why. I haven't done anything to hurt anyone." "You exist," Shimmer of Dawn said simply. "That is enough to frighten them. Your body does things that should not be possible. You run without stopping. You heal from injuries. You bend in strange ways. You eat flesh and emit salt from your skin. Those are just normal human things. They are not normal to us." Look down at his hands. These hands that could grip and tear. These hands that could heal themselves after being cut. These hands that sweated salt. "I'm not trying to be scary," he said quietly. Shimmer of Dawn reached across the table. Her crystal fingers touched his human ones. The contact was cool and smooth, like touching glass. "I know," she said. "That is why I am sitting here. I want to understand you, not fear you." felt warmth spread through his chest. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to him in days. "Thank you," he said. "You're really nice, and," he hesitated, "I hope this isn't weird to say, but I think you're really pretty. The way your body catches the light is beautiful." Shimmer of Dawn's crystal form suddenly blazed with bright colors. Purples and pinks and golds swirled through her body. This was the equivalent of blushing. "Thank you," she chimed softly. "No one has ever called me pretty before." From across the dining hall, 50 aliens watched this interaction with wide eyes. "The human just made a change colors," someone whispered. "What did he do to her? Is that a threat display? Maybe he's marking her as his territory." The rumors would grow even wilder after today. But for now, and Shimmer of Dawn just sat together, two ordinary beings in an extraordinary universe, sharing a moment of connection. It was a small thing, but sometimes small things matter most. 3 weeks into the semester, instructor announced a special class. They would be using the zero-gravity training chamber. The chamber was a large sphere deep inside the academy. When activated, it canceled all gravity. Students would float freely, learning to move in space without weight. This was an important skill. Many jobs in the galaxy required working in zero gravity. The students gathered outside the chamber, stood with them, looking through the window at the white sphere inside. "Have you done this before?" asked him. She had started talking to after watching him eat lunch with Shimmer of Dawn. If the was brave enough to befriend the human, maybe could be brave too. "Never," admitted. "Earth has strong gravity. We don't get to float around much." Felt something strange. She almost felt sorry for him. Imagine living on a world where gravity pulled you down every moment of every day. No wonder humans had such strong legs. The class entered the chamber one group at a time. Instructor activated the gravity. Slowly, the students began to float. Most species had some experience with low gravity. They moved gracefully, their crystal bodies spinning like dancers. They used their 6 legs to push off walls and control their direction. Even the, who normally floated anyway, seemed comfortable. Then it was turn. He floated up from the floor and immediately started spinning. His arms waved wildly. His legs kicked at nothing. He tumbled through the air like a leaf in the wind. "Help," he called out, though he did not sound scared. He sounded embarrassed. For the first time, the other students felt something other than fear when looking at the human. They felt amusement. "The great hunter cannot fly," someone whispered, and others laughed quietly. Instructor almost smiled. Finally, something the human could not do. "Take your time," she called out. "Zero gravity is difficult for everyone at first." Bounced off a wall. He spun in a new direction. His body turned upside down, then sideways, then upside down again. But even as he tumbled, something was changing. At first, his movements were pure chaos. His arms and legs flailed without purpose. But after a few minutes, the flailing became slower, more controlled. He stopped kicking randomly and started pushing against specific points. By the 10-minute mark, he could stop his spinning. By the 15-minute mark, he could move in a straight line. By the 20-minute mark, he was navigating around obstacles. Instructor watched with growing horror. The human was not just learning. He was learning faster than any student she had ever seen. His body was adapting in real time, figuring out how to move in this new environment through pure trial and error. By the end of the class, was flying through the chamber with reasonable skill. He was not as graceful as the, or as controlled as the, but he was moving with purpose and confidence. "How?" a student demanded. "How did you learn so fast?" Scratched his head, floating slowly in a circle as he did so. "I don't know. I just kept trying things until something worked. Isn't that normal?" It was not normal. For most species, learning a new physical skill took weeks of careful practice. Their bodies did not adapt quickly. Their brains did not rewire themselves on the fly. But human brains were different. They were incredibly plastic, meaning they could change and adapt rapidly. A human could learn new movements by simply trying them over and over, making small adjustments each time until they found what worked. After class, instructor filed an emergency report with the Academy's head of xenobiology. The head was an ancient named Crystal Mind. He was over 300 years old and had studied every known species in the galaxy. "You are telling me," Crystal Mind said slowly, "that this human learned zero-gravity movement in one class session." "Not just learned," said, "mastered. He went from completing competence to functional skill in less than 1 hour." Crystal Mind's facets flickered with calculation. "Do you understand what this means?" "I have ideas. Humans are not just survivors. They are not just persistent hunters. They are learning machines. They can adapt to any environment, any challenge, any situation. Not over generations like evolution, not over years like training, but in moments." Swings buzzed nervously. "What do we do?" Crystal Mind was silent for a long time. "We watch, we learn, and we hope they are as friendly as they seem." That night sat alone in his small room. He was tired but happy. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he had done something right. He had struggled, failed, and then succeeded, just like humans always did. His beeped, a message from Shimmer of Dawn. "I watched your zero-gravity training. You were very bad at first, then you were very good. It was strange and impressive." Smiled and typed a reply. "Thanks, I felt like an idiot at the beginning, but I didn't want to give up." Why not? Giving up would have been easier. Thought about the question. Why didn't humans give up? Why did they keep trying even when things seemed impossible? "I guess it's just how we are," he wrote back. "We're not the fastest or the strongest we can't fly or breathe underwater or see in the dark, but we don't quit. We keep going until we figure it out." Shimmer of Dawn's reply came quickly. "That is terrifying and wonderful at the same time." Laughed out loud. "Yeah," he said to the empty room, "I guess it is." Somewhere in the academy, in a dark office, Crystal Mind was reading physical assessment reports and class performance records. The old had studied thousands of species over his long life. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and go extinct. But he had never seen anything like humans. They were fragile, they were soft, they were slow and weak and short-lived. And they were absolutely, completely unstoppable. Crystal Mind began writing a new report. It was titled, "On the Integration of Humans into Galactic Society, Recommendations and Warnings." It would become the most-read document in Academy history. The semester was almost over. 4 months had passed since Park first walked into instructor's gymnasium. In that time, everything had changed. It started slowly. Shimmer of Dawn was the first to befriend him, then decided that if it could trust the human, so could she. One by one, other students followed. They discovered something unexpected. Was kind. Not just polite, not just friendly. He was genuinely, deeply kind in ways that surprised everyone. When a young student lost control of his floating tank and drifted toward a ventilation shaft, ran across the room and caught him. He burned his hands on the hot metal of the tank. The next day, his hands were already healing, pink and new. When a student dropped her books in the hallway, helped pick them up. He did not hesitate. He did not expect anything in return. He just helped because he saw someone who needed help. When the students held their festival of light came to watch, he sat quietly for 3 hours as they sang with colors and danced with light. Afterward, he told them it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Several cried. Did not have tear ducts, but their crystals hummed with emotion. Even instructor had changed her opinion. During a training exercise, the gravity generators had malfunctioned. 3 students were trapped in a damaged section of the chamber. Toxic gas was leaking in. The other students panicked. The instructors called for emergency teams, but did not wait. He grabbed a piece of metal cable from the equipment room. He wrapped it around his arm. Then he ran into the damaged section without any protective gear. The toxic gas burned his lungs, his eyes watered, his skin turned red, but he kept moving. He found the 3 students, 2 and 1. They were too weak to move, so carried them, one on his back, one under each arm. He staggered through the toxic air, step by step, until he reached safety. Then he collapsed. He spent 3 days in the medical center. The doctors said any other species would have died, but's body fought off the poison. His lungs healed. His skin recovered. By the 4th day, he was asking when he could go back to class. "You almost died," told him when she visited. "Why did you do it?" Looked confused by the question. "You were in trouble. What else was I supposed to do?" Had no answer. Now it was the last day of the semester. All students gathered in the Great Hall for the final ceremony. Crystal Mind, the ancient head of xenobiology, would give a speech. Awards would be given. Goodbyes would be said. Sat with his friends. Shimmer of Dawn was on his left, her crystal body glowing softly, was on his right, her shell clicking with nervous energy. Behind them, a dozen other students had gathered. All of them had been afraid of once. Now they called him friend. Crystal Mind floated to the center of the stage. He was very old. His crystal body was dark and deep, like looking into a cave full of stars. "This year," he began, "we had a special guest, a human, the first of his kind to study at our academy." The hall fell silent, every eye turned to. When he arrived, we were afraid. We had heard stories about humans. We knew they came from a death world. We knew they were persistent hunters. We knew their bodies could do impossible things. Crystal Mind paused. His facets flickered with old light. But we did not know the most important thing about humans. We did not know about their hearts. Felt Shimmer of Dawn's cool, crystal fingers touch his hand. Park ran across a courtyard to return a dropped. He burned his hands catching a falling student. He breathed poison to save 3 strangers. He sat for 3 hours watching a festival because he thought it was beautiful. Crystal Mind's voice grew stronger. We asked ourselves, what kind of creature does these things? What kind of being would risk everything for people it barely knows? And we found the answer. The old turned to look directly at. A human does these things. A human is not just a survivor or a hunter or a learning machine. A human is something more. A human is kind. A human cares. A human will run into danger not because it cannot feel fear, but because it cares more about others than about itself. Crystal Mind raised his ancient arms. The galaxy is vast and often cruel. We have many species, many cultures, many ways of living, but we do not have enough kindness. We do not have enough beings who will help simply because help is needed. He looked back at the assembly. Humans frighten us. Their bodies are strange. Their abilities are unnerving, but I believe now that we should not fear them. We should learn from them. We should welcome them. He bowed toward. Park, on behalf of the Galactic Unity Academy, I thank you. You came here an ordinary student. You leave here as a teacher. You have taught us that the most powerful force in the universe is not strength or speed or intelligence. Crystal Mind's body blazed with warm light. It is compassion. The great hall erupted in applause, stomping feet, clicking shells, chiming crystals, swirling gases. Every species in their own way showed appreciation. Sat very still. His eyes were wet. Back home he had been nobody special. Average grades, average skills, average everything. But here at the edge of the galaxy, surrounded by beings from 100 different worlds, he had found his place. Shimmer of Dawn squeezed his hand. Are you okay? Smiled. It was the same smile he had worn on his first day. Simple and warm and honest. Yeah, he said, I'm okay. After the ceremony, liaison officer found him outside the Great Hall. She was smiling. "How does it feel to be famous?" Laughed. "Weird. I didn't do anything special, I just acted normal." Nodded slowly. "That's exactly what made you special. You showed them that human normal is pretty amazing." She handed him This arrived from Earth. New exchange students will be joining the academy next semester. They'll need someone to show them around, someone who understands both worlds. Looked at the message. Then he looked up at the stars through the station's clear dome. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his family. And now, somewhere right here, was his new family. Crystal beings and armored insects and floating clouds, all of them his friends. "I'll do it," he said. Smiled. "I knew you would." Park turned to walk back inside. His friends were waiting for him. There would be a party tonight. Food that tasted like nothing. Music that sounded like everything. Dancing that looked impossible. He could not wait. Behind him, the stars burned cold and bright. The galaxy was vast and strange and sometimes dangerous, but it was also beautiful and full of wonder. And humans thought belonged here. They always had. They just needed someone to show them the way.